Here's what we'll discuss in this technology introduction video. Number 1, getting up and running with Beamable in Unity. Number 2, how data such as currency automatically syncs between servers, game clients, and dashboards. Number 3, how to create server-authoritative microservices and debug side by side with your Unity client code. Number 4, Microstorage and serverless database. Number 5, managing and monitoring microservices you create from the dashboards.
Hi there, I'm Ali El Ramoul. I'm the CTO at Beamable, and this is a brief demo of Beamable's capabilities. When you install the Beamable SDK, this is a very familiar view. This is the Unity blank canvas. You install Beamable through the package manager. You can view our documentation website for details on how to do that. But once you've installed Beamable, you will be able to view the Beamable package and update it from the package manager interface. So you'll notice that there are two potential packages that you can install, the Beamable package and the Beamable server package. The Beamable server package represents the microservice functionality, which you can optionally adopt. Provides you the ability to author server-authoritative code that runs on Beamable infrastructure in a serverless way. The main package contains all of the SDK, the wrappers for the managed services, the content system, as well as a variety of prefabs, so you can get rolling with some UIs and functionality that's ready to ship. So we can come in here and there is a currency HUD UI, which we can drag and drop directly into our game. And as you can see over here, it just popped up. One of the other things we're going to do is we're going to pull in the admin flow, which is a admin console that allows you to debug your game and is only accessible if you have a developer role or above within Beamable. We've dropped in our prefab here. We get a drop down which prompts us to select which currency we're pointed to. So I'm going to select gems, and when I hit the play button, which is essentially going to frictionlessly authenticate a user, it will create a user account if it doesn't exist already, and it will create all of the linkages with the Beamable backend and the gems currency to render that data in game. And so there's our currency. Currently, this user does have some currency. I've got 340 gems. If I press the tilde key over here, I get the admin console. You can see over here that I'm pointed to the hero dev environment. So I'm going to pop over to the portal. I can click this open portal button, which is going to take me to this particular realm and allow me to interact with environment data. The first view you'll get is a dashboard. Now this player is the one, this is the ID from that I got from the console. And as you can see here on the left-hand side, there's a whole bunch of different services that I can interact with that this player may have data on. Now we can view that we have had some session information for this user. And if I go to the inventory, I can see that this particular player does indeed have 340 gems. Now I can come in here. This is especially useful for debugging purposes for a developer, but also for customer support. Once your game is live, developers can come in here and update, interact with the portal and with specific players' information in order to service their needs. So if we come in here, we can edit the currency. I can set it to 400. And when I hit the save button, the portal will have updated. And if I come to the game, my data will have automatically updated as well. So all of that that connection is fully instrumented in a way that requires very little in terms of coding from the developer. In fact, in this case, I did no code at all. I simply dragged and dropped some prefabs, hooked it up to my content, and it was entirely visual experience. There's a whole list of managed services that are very powerful that allow developers to use functionality out of the box without ever writing any server-authoritative code. I'll go over back to the toolbox, and I'm going to hit the microservice manager button this time around. And I'm going to get this new window over here on the right-hand side. And as you can see here, we already have two things. We've got a Hello World microservice, and we've got a Hello Data serverless storage. Now, Beamable both provides the ability to publish serverless code to the Beamable backend, as well as a serverless database. Today, Beamable provides MongoDB support. In the future, we'll add support for other storage mechanisms. Now, in order to author our microservices, I'm going to pop over here into the Assets view. Under Assets, Beamable, Microservices, and then my Hello World microservice here, we can see that there is a single file. Now, when I open up that file, I get a view that looks something like this. On the right-hand side, this is my microservice code. So there's already some code that I've added in here, and I'll explain what this is. On the left-hand side is our Unity code. This microservice test script is a mono behavior, which is a common Unity essentially component that will execute on the client side. The left-hand code executes on the client side, that is in the app on device, whereas the right-hand code executes in the Beamable cloud or locally, depending on whether the developer is debugging or has published their Beamable service, but it occurs server authoritatively. So now what is happening here is pretty straightforward. This is a server authoritative function. And what denotes it as such is this client callable attribute. So essentially, in order to create a server function, all you really have to do is declare your function, give it a name. I'm going to call this one echo, and add your code, add this client callable attribute. And once you do that, this is a new API that is accessible from your client. Now, for now, I'm just going to stick to the two that were here before. And as you can see, there are two. There's one called grant currency and one called grant score. The grant currency API will simply proxy through the microservice to call the Beamable managed services inventory and grant the player some currency. Now, if you come in here and you type in services dot, you'll get a list of services that are accessible to you from the microservice, which range from tournaments to trials and so forth and so on. So backing up a second, on the client side, all we're going to do here is instantiate a client. This is automatically generated for you by Beamable. When you define your APIs, we automatically create this client class, which allows you to invoke your microservice. And then from here, this is our single line of frictionless authentication. And we're going to do two things. We're going to update the currency and we're going to update the score. So if we come back over here to Unity, and so our sample scene over here has our currency, and it also has this game object over here that has our microservice test script. And as you can see, it points to the leaderboard high score and to our currency gems. It's essentially telling our API, here are the content objects that I want you to use. Also have a simple button here that simply invokes that on button pressed command in the script. And now when we press this button, it's going to execute some code on the client side, which will call the microservice. And because we've attached our debuggers already, we should be able to breakpoint both sides of the equation and get deep insight as to what's going on. Once again, my currency has loaded. I'm going to hit the more button, and there we are. Now we're back to our IDE. This is, once again, left side is the client code. We're on this line. I'm going to hit next. And now we're on the server side of the code. And we can see what's going on in quite acute detail with our local variables, which thread we're on, and so forth and so on. So this is extraordinarily powerful because it allows us to have a complete trace of what's going on the client side, what's going on the server side, and really no gaps in between. We can also include whatever third-party SDKs we want to the microservice, whatever dependencies, other dependencies are useful in the pursuit of authoring our code. We can share code between the client side and the server side, serialization structures, for instance, and we can share content as well. So overall, it just makes the experience magical and a lot more smooth for the developer in terms of creating server authoritative code. The last thing, once you've published your microservice, you can come over in here into the portal, and Beamable will actually automatically generate some docs for you, essentially an open API spec in the portal side. So as you can see here, those APIs we created, grant currency and grant score, are now not only visible and inspectable here through the portal, but you can actually try them out. So you can click the tryout button and you can select your currency content ID, and then just make the direct call to the microservice. And this allows you to also create admin APIs that are accessible through the portal with the benefit of some UI directly in the portal. So if the developer wanted to create something like a admin API to grant the player something special or reset the player account, you can do that via this user interface, and you don't have to make raw API calls. This concludes the high level of our demo, and as you can see here, our microservices, we can view what's running. We have a storage object, we've got our hello world, we can view our previous deployments, as well as any comments we've attached to that deployment, and as well as monitor, view the logs, and view the metrics of our microservices. That's basically Beamable in a nutshell: how to authenticate your user, how to do some frictionless login, how to pull in a drag and drop prefab, how to use content, how to write a microservice, and how to use the portal.